Welcome to Japanese Sleep Whispers, your sanctuary for peaceful nights and gentle dreams. Here, you will find calming bedtime stories inspired by the timeless beauty and traditions of Japan. Each story is read slowly in a soothing voice, accompanied by natural sounds such as flowing rivers and the tranquil rhythm of shishi-odoshi. Whether you seek relaxation, relief from stress, or help falling asleep, these tales invite you to drift away into a world of serenity. Imagine quiet temples, moonlit gardens, and the whispering bamboo forests as you listen. If you'd like these soothing stories to be part of your nightly routine, consider subscribing so they're always with you when you need them. Subscribe and let these stories be your nightly ritual of calm and rest. Thank you for being here. May you always find peace in every moment. Fireflies along the old country road. Prologue. The first evening light. The evening settled slowly over the quiet countryside, as though the sky itself were taking a long, unhurried breath. Along the gentle curves of an old country road, light began to fade in soft, lingering layers, not disappearing at once, but dimming with kindness, the way a lantern is covered by the palm of a careful hand. The traveler walked alone, not hurried, not driven by destination, simply moving at the pace of a slow heartbeat, one step, then another, the gravel beneath their feet crunching faintly, as if whispering so as not to disturb the coming night. The air was warm with the softness of early summer. A faint touch of moisture, the kind that gathers around rice paddy sand low grasses when the day ends its climb slides gently down the curve of dusk. Somewhere far off, a single bell from a distant temple rung once. The sound was round, deep, and slow, an echo shaped like calm water. The traveler paused, not because they needed to, but because the world around them seemed to ask for stillness. In that stillness, another sound rose, the quiet rustle of tall grasses bending in a tender wind. And then, almost too faint to notice, the first firefly floated into the dim air. It drifted upward as if remembering how to rise, its green-white glow pulsing with the rhythm of a creature that had never learned how to hurry. The traveler watched it without expectation. A second firefly appeared, then a third, then a few more, like tiny lanterns lit by patient handshiden in the dusk. Soon, the old country road was bordered by drifting sparks of light, each moving slowly, softly, as if the night itself were breathing them into being. The traveler continued forward, the glow of the fireflies guiding each step, not with brightness, but with gentleness. Nothing in the world seemed sharp. nothing heavy. Even thoughts felt lighter, floating like dust motes turning in the dimming air. A faint scent of water, cool, still water, drifted from the direction of a nearby stream. The kind of scent that carries memory of calm nights spent beside quiet shores. The road curled left, leading deeper into a landscape that seemed maddening of shapes, but of softness. And as the traveler entered that gentler darkness, the fireflies brightened slightly, as if welcoming them into a world that existed only after the sun released its hold. There was no destination, only the quiet road, the drifting glow, and the slow unfolding of a night made for rest. The traveler breathed in. The air settled around them like a warm, silk-like blanket. The walk had truly begun. Chapter 1: The Road Beneath the Soft Night. The old country road stretched ahead in a gentle line, barely visible beneath the settling darkness. Its surface a mixture of worn graveland, thin patches of earth, held the warmth off the day's final sunlight, releasing it slowly into the cool breath of the evening. Each step the traveler took seemed to disturb nothing. The sound of their footfall was soft, muted, as if the road itself had grown accustomed to quiet wanderers moving through its dusk. The fireflies drifted in either side of the narrow path, sometimes rising, lowering their small lantern. Bodies brightening and dimming with a rhythm older than memory. Some floated low near the grasses, casting faint glimmers in the slender blades that swayed to unseen currents. Others hovered higher, their lights pulsing like distant stars caught in the branches of summer trees. A soft wind moved through the valley, not enough to push, not enough to chill. Just enough to brush gently against the traveler's cheeks, if reminding them to slow even further. The sky above was not fully dark. A thin wash of remaining twilight clung to the horizon, dissolving inch by inch into deeper tones of blue. Here and there, small pockets of cloud rested quietly, fading into shapes that barely held form, a drifting line, a pale ripple, then nothing at all. A stream ran parallel to part of the road, hidden by low shrubs and young trees, but its voice reached the traveler in soft, steady notes. Water murmured over smooth stones, gentle and patient, as though repeating an ancient lullaby carried by the land itself. The traveler slowed further. There was no reason to hurry. The night was not something to reach the end of, but something to dwell in, to move through with the pace of a drifting firefly. A faint scent rose from the earth, the smell of warmed soil meeting cool night air. It blended with the crisp fragrance of nearby cedar trunks and the delicate sweetness from unseen wildflowers resting along the road's edge. Every breath the traveler took felt deeper, longer, yet lighter, as if each inhale brought in not only air but silence. The fireflies, drawn by the calm, gathered more thickly. One brushed past the traveler's shoulder, leaving a tiny trail of light before drifting upward again, its glow blinking softly like a whispered greeting. Farther ahead, the road curved around a small bend where old wooden fences marked the boundary of an abandoned field. The fences were worn smooth by rain and time. Some leaned slightly, others cast long, thin shadows in the dim light. Grass grew tall in the field beyond, gentle waves moving silently in the evening breeze. At the center of the field stood a single tree, its branches wide and familiar, holding pockets of darkness between leaves that shifted like quiet hands. A gathering of fireflies circled the trunk, glowing intermittently in patterns too slow to be deliberate, too peaceful to be random. The traveler paused again. The quiet here was the kind that settled into the space between heartbeats, the kind that made sound seem unnecessary. No distant engines, no hurried travelers, only the rustle of summer grass, the steady hum of unseen insects, and the soft glow of small lights moving gently through the dark. The old country road seemed to hold its breath, waiting patiently, willing to remain exactly as it was for as long as the traveler wished. Time did not matter. Destination did not matter. Only the quiet path beneath the soft night, and the slow, drifting lanterns of early summer. The traveler stepped forward again, as gently as if they were walking through a dream that asked not to be broken. The night deepened. The road unwound in a long, peaceful ribbon. And the fireflies followed. Chapter 2: The stream beside the moonlit grass. The stream revealed itself gradually, as though it had been walking beside the traveler all along, waiting for just the right moment to make its presence known. It began with a soft shift and the background sounds, a low, gentle murmur woven into the fabric of the night. Then, a glimmer of reflected light appeared through the tall grass. A single trembling silver line that widened as the traveler drew closer. The moon had risen, quietly, without ceremony, and its pale glow lay across the landscape like a thin veil of cool silk. Where the veil touched water, the stream shimmered in slow, wavering strokes, long shapes of light that bent and stretched with the current. The traveler stopped at the edge of the bank. A soft incline led down to where smooth stones rested beneath shallow water. Each stone was brushed constantly by the flow, an ancient conversation carried out in hushed tones. The sound of the stream was not loud, yet it filled the air with a patient rhythm. A rhythmic hush and another, each one slow, measured, gentle. It felt like listening to the steady breathing of the night itself. Fireflies drifted near the surface of the water, their greenish glow reflected in faint doubles, as if tiny spirits were floating beneath the stream in perfect imitation. Some dipped low, almost touching the water before rising again, their bodies tracing small arcs that faded as quickly as they formed. The tall grass that surrounded the bank swayed in soft waves. The wind here moved differently, less like air and more like a calm intention, guiding each blade with gentle hands. The traveler sat. There was no need to stand, and the earth, still warm from the afternoon sun, offered a comfortable placebo rest. From here, the world felt slower still. The sky had deepened into a rich, smooth indigo, the edges of the horizon melting seamlessly into the darker dome above. A handful of stars peeked through, faint at first, then slightly brighter, never sharp, never insistent, but soft points of light settling into their places. The stream continued its patient whispering. Water slid over stone, around stone, between stone, each variation producing its own subtle tone. A gentle trickle, a rounded murmur, a faint bubbling that rose only for a moment before settling back into a steady hush. The traveler breathed slowly. Here, breath seemed to match the rhythm of the water, the rise and fall of each inhale and exhale blending seamlessly with the stream's quiet pulse. Sometimes a frog croaked from somewhere upstream, a single tone, low and soft, that echoed briefly before falling silent again. Sometimes a leaf fell from a nearby branch, drifting down in a lazy spiral before landing on the surface with a sound so soft it barely registered. Sometimes a firefly settled on a stem, its glow steady for a moment before dimming, as if it too were growing sleepy. The traveler leaned back slightly, hands resting behind them on the cool earth. A faint fragrance rose from the grass, the fresh scent of green summer blades, kissed by night air. Mixed within it was the clean smell of the stream, a soothing clarity that refreshed without stirring, that cooled without waking. As the moon climbed higher, its glow softened even further. The light did not brighten, it diffused, becoming gentler, more cloud-like, filling the scene with a quiet silver mist. Shadows lengthened slowly, stretching out like tired limbs ready to rest. The night deepened, but did not darken. The traveler closed their eyes for a moment. Behind their lids, the soft rhythm of the stream seemed even clearer, a long, slow whisper flowing in an endless line. When they opened their eyes again, the fireflies had gathered more thickly near the water, their lights glimmering in overlapping pulses. Some glowed bright, others faint, their timing drifting in gentle unison like distant lanterns swaying in a mild breeze. It was impossible to tell how much time had passed. Minutes? An hour? Longer? The night offered no clues, and the traveler did not seek them. Time was not something to follow here. Only quiet. Only the stream's soft breath. Only the moonlight settles lightly on the grass and water. Only the drifting glow of fireflies moving slowly through the warm summer air. The traveler exhaled, a long, smooth breath. The road waited somewhere beyond the bend, still wrapped in darkness and gentle light. But for nowhere, beside the stream, the world asked nothing but rest. And the traveler remained still. Chapter 3: The field where the fireflies gather. The path widened gently as the traveler walked on, leaving the quiet stream behind. Its soft murmur faded into the background of the night, like a sound remembered rather than heard. Ahead, the landscape opened into a wide, gentle field. The moonlit grass spread out in layered waves, each blade moving with slow, unhurried breaths of warm summer air. The field felt untouched, as if time itself had chosen not to pass here. Nothing hurried, nothing intruded, only calm, only night, only the sound of grasses brushing lightly against one another in rhythms too soft to follow. As the traveler stepped forward, the fireflies appeared again, not scattered as they had been along the road, but gathered. At first, only a few drifted near the grass. Then, a faint shimmer rose farther out in the field. Light, soft and intermittent, like the glow of small embers breathing in the dark. The traveler paused. The shimmer grew. More fireflies lifted into the air, their bodies blinking with gentle regularity, never bright, never sudden, only soft pulses that surfaced and faded like thoughts in the moments before sleep. The air here felt slightly warmer, saturated with the scent of summer grasses and the faint sweetness of clover. The travelers stepped slowly into the field. The grass brushed softly against their legs, bending gently to make way. The fireflies responded, drifting closer, not startled, not cautious, as if recognizing the calm the traveler carried. Their glow intensified just slightly, not brighter, but more numerous, like a quiet constellation taking form at waist height. They moved without pattern, yet with harmony, rising, falling, hovering, turning, their lights blinking in slow, sleepy rhythm. Some drifted so near that the traveler could feel the faintest disturbance in the air as tiny wings moved. Others lingered in long grass stems, their bodies glowing faintly before dimming into silhouettes. Farther into the field, a cluster of fireflies gathered above a patch of taller grass. Their overlapping glows created a small dome of light, pale green and wavering, as if a delicate lantern had been set down by a gentle hand. The traveler approached, walking slowly so as not to break the softness of the scene. The field welcomed them with a rustle barely above silence. At the center, the fireflies formed a loose circle, hovering in place with subtle movement, a drifting, breathing shape made entirely of light. It felt like a gathering that had been happening long before the traveler arrived. A meeting of quiet spirits in the warm summer dark. The traveler lowered themselves to sit among them. The grass cushioned gently beneath their weight. Warm earth below, warm air above. Fireflies drifting in slow halos all around. Even the breeze seemed to soften. Its movement grew slower, thinner, like a long exhale spread across the field. The moonlight washed over everything, the grass, the fireflies, the traveler in a gentle silver glow that made edges blur and shadows soften. The traveler's breathing matched the night again. Slow, steady, quiet. A distant night bird sang a single note, low and calm. It echoed briefly, then faded. The fireflies continued their dance, though dance was too strong a word. They drifted like small memories, rising and falling in a mind half asleep. One firefly settled softly on the traveler's knee, glowed once, dimmed, and stayed. Another hovered near their hand before drifting upward, its light blinking in a slow farewell. A warm peace settled over the traveler. Here, in this gentle field, the world asked nothing at all. No direction, no urgency, no thought, only rest, only the quiet glow of drifting lights, only the deep hush of a summer night. Minutes slipped by without form, soft as silk, smooth as warm air. The fireflies brightened once more, a slow collective pulse, like the field itself taking a deep breath. And then their lights dimmed again, settling into the rhythm of the night. The traveler remained still, their heart as calm as the drifting glow. Chapter 4: The Wooden Bridge Over Silent Water. The field narrowed gently into a slimmer path, and the traveler rose with unhurried movement, as though lifting themselves from a dream that had only just begun. The fireflies drifted aside naturally, their quiet lantern glow trailing softly behind like a curtain of warm mist. The grass parted with a tender rustle as the traveler stepped forward once more. Ahead, a wooden bridge waited. It appeared gradually, first as a darker shape against the pale moonlit grasses, then as faint lines of aged timber that caught the moonlight in thin silver threads. The bridge arched gently over a narrow stretch of water. Not a river, not a stream, something slower, something older, water that seemed to dream in place. Its surface was still, completely still, so still that the moon appeared not as a reflection, but as another moon resting quietly in a world beneath. The traveler stepped onto the wood. The first footfall made a soft, hollow sound, a small, warm note that reverberated lightly through the bridge's body before melting into silence. The air here felt slightly cooler, whispering up from the sleeping water below. A subtle scent rose with it, the clean, gentle fragrance of shallow ponds and moss-covered stones, the kind of scent that holds memories of summer nights from long ago. The traveler stood still. Beneath them, the water did not stir. Not even a thread of movement broke the surface. The reflection of the moon remained unbroken, a round, pale glow held delicately in a liquid cradle. Fireflies followed the traveler onto the bridge. Some hovered near the railing, their glow faintly illuminating the texture of old timber. Others floated over the water, their reflections drifting beneath them, greenish-white and dreamlike pairs of small lights, one real, one imagined. For a moment, the traveler closed their eyes. The wooden plank shelled warmth from the long summer day. The air, cool but gentle, moved slowly across their skin. And the distant field whispered faintly with the sound of brushing grass. Only one sound rose above the hush, a soft creak. Not a sharp one, a slow, tired exhale from the old bridges. It settled beneath the traveler's weight. A familiar sound, like wood speaking quietly after waiting many years for gentle company. The traveler moved a few steps forward. Each step created a small, echoing note, a soft, low thump that disappeared almost immediately into the night. Near the center of the bridge, the breeze shifted. It carried with it the slightest stir of water, a ripple, round and delicate, spreading outward before fading into stillness again. A frog croaked once from the far bank, a low, distant tone that resonated through the quiet air and then fell silent. The traveler leaned against the railing, their hands resting on smooth, weathered wood. Below, the water held everything perfectly: the moon, the fireflies, the shadows of grasses and the banks. Even the traveler's silhouette fell clearly across the surface, though it wavered slightly whenever a firefly drifted close. The night deepened. Darkness thickened around the edges of the landscape, but it never felt heavy. Just soft, like the night pulling a gentle blanket around the world. A pair of fireflies moved together above the water, their lights blinking in slow alternation, one brightening, the other dimming, then switching, as though exchanging quiet greetings. Their reflections performed the same soft pattern below, creating a tender, mirrored dance. The traveler breathed in, breath deep and long, the scent of night water settling gently into their chest. The world here asked for nothing at all. It did not push, did not pull, did not call. It simply existed, a place made for slow thoughts and slower breaths. A place where sound was so gentle that silence itself felt like company. After a long while, or perhaps no time at all, the traveler began to walk toward the far end of the bridge. Each step slowed the world further, as though the night were guiding them into an even softer quiet. The water remained still. The fireflies drifted low. The moon shone faintly, soft on the wooden planks. And as the traveler took the final step off the bridge, the night felt deeper, warmer, and infinitely calm. Chapter 5: The Path Between Whispering Cedars. The far side of the bridge opened into a narrow path, lined with tall cedar trees that rose in gentle columns toward the night sky. Their trunks were straight, steady, and dark, yet the moonlight slipped softly between them, painting pale ribbons along the quiet forest floor. The traveler stepped forward. The air beneath the cedars felt different, cooler, calmer, as though the tree shelled a quietness of their own and shared it generously with anyone who passed. A faint scent lingered here, the deep, green fragrance of cedar bark and soft needles resting on the ground, a scent that carried the memory of raven on a dry night. Each breath the traveler took felt smoother, easier, as if the forest were breathing with them. The path was narrow, but welcoming. Moss softened the edges, its texture tender beneath the traveler's steps. The fireflies followed, yet their glow dimmed slightly beneath the tall canopy, not out of fear, but as though the forest itself requested a gentler light. They drifted between the cedar trunks, their soft pulses echoing faintly in the still air. The wind moved through the trees. But here, the breeze was different from that of the open field. It moved slowly, quietly, as though padded by layers of soft needles. When it brushed the cedar branches, it created the faintest whisper. A long, gentle sigh rose and fell with calm intention. Not a rustle, not a crackle, just a whisper, cool and steady, like the night thinking softly to itself. The traveler paused again, listening. The cedar whisper wrapped around them, embracing the quiet of the path. It felt like being inside a lullaby. The darkness here wasn't heavy. It was smooth, a darkness shaped like rest, tucked between ancient trunks that stood patiently like guardians of calm. A soft pulse of light floated near the traveler's shoulder. A firefly, glowing faintly, as if sleepy itself. It lingered for a moment, hovering gently without moving forward, as though asking the traveler to slow even more. So they did. Each step became quieter, softer, a slow glide instead of a stride. The moss welcomed every movement without sound. Farther along the path, the cedars grew thicker, their branches overlapping above to create a natural corridor of deep, cool shade. The moonlight filtered through in thin, delicate beams, slivers of silver that wavered softly when touched by the breeze. The air thickened with calm. Even the insects here seemed to hum more softly, their distant chorus a gentle backdrop to the cedar whisper. The traveler placed a hand in one of the trunks. Its surface was cool, slightly rough, yet comforting, as though the tree held centuries of night air within its bark. A deep silence settled. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of a place that had nothing to prove. A place that simply existed to be still. The fireflies gathered once more, floating slowly at knee-height and shoulder height, their lights dim bit. Present like the soft thoughts that drift through the mind just before sleep. They did not attempt to brighten the path. Their glow was enough to remind the traveler that they were not alone, yet alone in the best way, in the way that makes the heart quiet and warm. The path curved gently to the right. As the traveler followed it, the cedar whisper grew softer still, as though the forest were lulling itself into deeper rest. A cool breath of air slid through the branches, touched the traveler's cheek, and faded. The world seemed to exhale. Slowly, gently, the path widened again, allowing more moonlight to slip through. The fireflies brightened just a little, a gentle, welcoming glow showing that the cedars were thinning ahead. The traveler continued, step by step, each movement light as drifting dust. The night deepened, the air softened, and the quiet cedar path carried the traveler into a calm, even quieter than before. Chapter 6: The Shrine Lantern at the Edge of Night. The cedar path opened gradually into a small clearing. It was not wide, just enough space for the moonlight to settle gently on. A cluster of smooth stones and a single, quiet structure standing at the clearing's center. A small shrine, old, humble, made of weathered wood that held the scent of many calm seasons. Its roof was softened by thin layers of moss, and the air around it felt still in a way that belonged only to long-forgotten places. Beside the shrine stood a single lantern. Stone. Simple. Rounded by time. Inside it, a faint light glowed. not a candle, not a flame, just a soft illumination like the memory of fire rather than fire itself. The traveler approached slowly. The lantern's light did not flicker. It pulsed gently, as though breathing a soft, steady rhythm that matched the night's unhurried heartbeat. The fireflies drifted closer to it, hovering in quiet circles as though drawn to its calm warmth. Their lights aligned with the lantern's glow, creating a slow, synchronized shimmer in the air. The shrine said nothing. It only stood, steadfast and patient, as though it had watched night after night pass quietly through its gaze. A faint breeze slid through the clearing. Not enough to sway the trees, not enough to stir the moss, just enough to touch the traveler's hair and dissolve again into the stillness. The traveler knelt slightly, resting a hand in the cool stone of the lantern base. It felt smooth, like river stone cooled by moonlight. The light within continued its slow pulse. Soft, slow, steady. With each glow, the shadows around the shrine softened slightly, then deepened again, a rhythm too calm to be called movement. The air grew warm around the lantern. Not hot, not bright, just warm enough to loosen thoughts, to ease the space between breaths. A soft hush settled over the clearing. Even the insects seemed to be quiet here, as though respecting the lantern's serenity. The traveler closed their eyes briefly. Behind their eyelids, the pulsing light continued a gentle echo that felt like drifting. When they opened their eyes, the world appeared softer, as though wrapped in a thin veil of night mist. The shrine's wooden frame creaked faintly, a small, almost imperceptible sound that resonated like an old memory stretching its limbs. A few fireflies floated toward the traveler, their glow slow, measured, as though guiding them toward a deeper quiet. One landed in the traveler's sleeve, its tiny light warm and small. It stayed only a moment before rising again, drifting lazily toward the lantern. The clearing felt timeless. No urgency, no direction, just a gentle invitation to rest. The lantern pulsed again, soft, slow, steady. The trees around the clearing stood tall and still, silhouetted against the night sky in shapes that felt less like trees and more like guardians of silence. Above them, the moon drifted behind a thin veil of cloud. Its light softened into a gentle glow that spread across the stones like pale, silent water. The traveler breathed again, longer this time, deeper, the kind of breath that comes only when the mind begins to loosen. The lantern felt warmer. The fireflies grew slower. The night drew quieter. Everything softened. Everything settled. Everything began to sink towards sleep. The shrine's small door moved slightly in the breeze. A faint wooden side hat echoed softly through the clearing. The traveler remained still, watching the lantern pulse in the dim air. Soft, slow, steady, as though it were guiding the night itself toward the quietest hour. And the path beyond the shrine waited dark, gentle, and ready to lead the traveler deeper into calm. Chapter 7, where the fireflies drift like dreams. Beyond the small shrine, a narrow trail extended softly into the night. It felt less like a path and more like a thought, faint, gentle, barely illuminated by the drifting glow of the fireflies that floated ahead. The traveler stepped forward. The air here was even quieter than before, as though the world tucked itself in, pulling a blanket of soft darkness up to its shoulders. The fireflies moved slowly, their lights no longer bright points in the night, but soft halos like tiny lanterns seen through half-closed eyes. They drifted upward, then downward, their movement so unhurried that it almost matched the rhythm of breathing. The trees surrounding the path became silhouettes, blending gently into the night sky until their shapes seemed to float rather than stand. The traveler's steps grew quieter not because the moss softened them, but because the night seemed to absorb every sound before it could settle. A low mist began to form along the ground. Thin at first, then thicker, until it resembled a pale river flowing slowly through the forest. The firefly's glow reflected softly on its surface, creating faint ripples of greenish gold light that drifted like sleepy thoughts across a still mind. The mist rose gently, wrapping around the traveler's ankles, cool and feather-light, like a whispered invitation to sink deeper into the quiet. Above, the branches swayed almost imperceptibly, their movement as slow as the drifting mist. The night breeze was softer now, not a wind, not even a breath, just a gentle shift in the air that carried the faint scent of earth and leaves and far-off rain. The fireflies began to gather. Not many, not all at once, just a few at first, hovering close together in a slow spiral, their lights pulsing faintly. Soft, slow, steady. The same rhythm as the shrine's lantern. The same rhythm as a heartbeat slipping toward rest. The traveler paused. The mist curled upward, past their knees, light and cool, like a dream beginning to take shape. The firefly's spiral grew wider, their lights weaving a gentle pattern in the air. Not bright Inato illuminate the forest, but warm Inato soften the dark. The night felt suspended as if it were waiting, quietly, for the traveler to release the last threads of wakefulness. A single firefly floated close. It hovered just before the traveler's eyes, its glow fading and returning in the slow rhythm of sleep. The traveler exhaled. long, slow, a breath that carried away the weight of thought. The mist rose higher, embracing the travelers' arms, their shoulders, cool and calm. The firefly drifted upward, its glow dimmer now, not from fading, but from blending with the soft mist and the deep quiet. The trail ahead no longer looked like a trail. It looked like the space between dreams, the gentle place where the world permits to let go. The fireflies gathered one last time, floating slowly into a quiet constellation above the path. Their lights pulsed softly, soft, slow, steady, and the traveler stepped forward, carried gently by the drifting mist, the dim glow, and the night's deep calm. The world felt lighter. The body felt warmer. Thoughts began to dissolve. And the fireflies continued to drift, slow as a sigh, soft as sleep, guiding the traveler into the deepest quiet yet. Final chapter: the night that carries you home. The mist thickened just slightly, not enough to obscure the path. Only enough to soften its edges until the world felt round and gentle. The traveler walked slowly. Each step felt lighter than the one before, as though the earth had become soft enough to cradle their feet with every movement. The fireflies drifted ahead in a loose line, their dim glow barely marking the way, but still enough to give the night a quiet center. Their lights blinked slower now, slower than breath, slower than thought, a rhythm that the traveler's body began to match without trying. Soft, slow, steady. The trees around them spread wider, their forms blurring into gentle shadows that leaned together like figures falling asleep. The air was warmer here, as if the night had gathered everything calm within it. The path began to slope downward, just a little like the beginning of a long, easy exhale. The mist rose with it, cool, light, barely there, just enough to touch the traveler's hands, their face, their closed lashes. Nothing else moved, not the branches, not the grass, not even the fireflies, who now drifted almost motionless, lying in the quiet air. The forest had entered a stillness so deep that it felt like the world holding its breath. But not a tense breath, a soft, resting breath, the kind taken just before sleep. The traveler's eyes grew heavier. The path widened again. At the bottom of the gentle slope, the trees opened into a small clearing, a circle of soft earth, still mist, and quiet air that seemed to invite rest. The fireflies floated toward the center, their lights barely glowing, now tiny, warm, almost hidden. The traveler stepped inside. The air felt warm, blanket soft, shaped perfectly to hold them. They sat. The earth beneath them was cool, but not cold, a steady, grounding coolness that balanced the night's warm hush. The mist curled around them, thin and pale, rising and falling with the rhythm of their breath. The fireflies settled nearby, their lights pulsing just enough to see, just enough comfort. Soft, slow, steady. The travelers' breathing fell into the same rhythm. Their thoughts softened, thinned, faded. The forest grew quieter, still quiet, not from emptiness, but from fullness, as though the night had gathered every gentle sound and laid them all to rest. A faint breeze touched the traveler's cheek. It was warm, barely a whisper, barely a movement. Just enough to ease the last lingering weight from their shoulders. The fireflies dimmed further. Their glow was no longer meant to guide, but to soothe small, slow pulses like the last traces of wakefulness in a drifting mind. The traveler lay back slowly, the soft earth rising to support them. Mist curled lightly around their arms, their legs, their chest. The night trapped itself around them without pressure, without urgency, a warm darkness that breathed with them. The fireflies' lights softened into faint halos, then into small warm dots, then into gentle shadows. The traveler's breath grew slower, deeper, quiet. The forest exhaled. The mist settled. The world lowered its voice to almost nothing. The last firefly drifted downward, glowing once, softly. Soft, slow, steady, and then fading into the night. The traveler floated in warmth, in calm, in weightless quiet. Thoughts dissolved, shapes loosened, sound drifted away, and the night carried them home, into rest, into stillness, into sleep. Good night. A rainy evening in Guyane. Prologue. The first drop of evening rain. The first raindrop fell so softly that it made no sound. It touched the stone path of Gia like a tiny whisper, a gentle breath against the quiet evening air. Then another drop. And another. Each one settling with the calm intention of a night that wished only to slow the world down. The sky above Kyoto had already faded into a pale, muted gray, a color that blended perfectly with the wooden eaves, the tiled roofs, and the soft lantern light beginning to glow beneath the awnings. Along the narrow lanes of Guyane, the air smelled of rain-soaked earth and old wooden tea. Houses a scent deep and calm, the kind that eases the breath without asking. A faint breeze drifted between the buildings, carrying with it the subtle sweetness of freshly steeped tea, the distant, quiet huma. A shamisen being tuned behind closed doors. Footsteps were rare, voices softer still. The evening held a serene hush, as though the entire district were exhaling slowly, calmly, letting go of the day. And beneath a wooden awning, the traveler stood alone, watching the rain begin its gentle descent over Guyane. They held no umbrella. They were in no rush. The night around them felt like a placement for wandering slowly, for watching quietly, for letting thoughts drift like the first raindrops sliding across the stone. The lanterns along the narrow street began to glow brighter as the evening deepened, soft circles of amber light trembling faintly every time the breeze nudged the rain sideways. The traveler lifted their head. Raindrops gathered along the edges of the roofs, hanging heavy for a single peaceful moment before falling in. Slow, steady beads that chimed gently against the stones below. The sound was soft, repeating, rhythmic, a lullaby woven from water and old wooden streets. The traveler breathed in the quiet scent of rain and let their shoulders sink gently downward, as though the evening itself were lifting weight from their body. It was the kind of night designed for rest. A night where stories dissolved into gentle sound, where footsteps softened into shadows, and where the rain told its own slow tale without a single word. The traveler stepped forward into the first thin curtain of evening rain, and the night of Gion, calm and longing to soothe, opened softly before them. Chapter 1: Rain on the Old Stone Path. The traveler took their first quiet step onto the old stone path. A soft splash spread gently outward, barely audible beneath the steady whisper of the evening rain. The stones, darkened by moisture, shone faintly under the lantern. Light not with brightness, but with a calm, muted glow that seemed to rise from within the stones themselves. Each stone held years of footsteps, years of rain, years of quiet evenings just like this one. And tonight, they welcomed one more. The rain fell a little harder now, but still softly, always softly, each drop creating its own tiny circle on the stone surface before merging into the gentle sheen that coated the path. The traveler moved slowly. There was no need to walk quickly here. Gion was a place that encouraged slowness, that invited the mind to loosen its grip, that taught the breath to deepen without effort. From beneath the eaves of Machia houses, raindrops slid steadily from the wooden beams, collecting in thin lines that fell like strings of clear beads. They landed with soft, repeating taps, a rhythm steady enough to lull the night in a deeper rest. Tap, tap, tap. The sound blended with the distant murmur of water flowing along the narrow drainage channels beside the street. That water moved with the quiet confidence of something that had traveled the same path for centuries. The traveler paused. They watched as a small stream of rainwater ran along the edge of the stone path, carrying fallen petals, pale pink, delicate, no longer attached to their blossoms. The petals drifted slowly, caught in the thin current, turning in gentle circles as though too drowsy to decide which direction to follow. The traveler followed them with their eyes, their own thoughts gliding just as slowly. Not forward, not backward, simply floating. The air around them held the deep fragrance of wet earth mixed softly with the scent of cedar wood from old door frames, faint incense from temples nearby, and something sweet, the warm aroma of red bean pasta lingering from a distant tea house just closing for the evening. The scents blended, weaving together like layers of a quiet memory. A paper lantern hung outside one of the houses, its surface trembling gently each time the wind shifted. The warm glow within flickered softly, touching the wet path with a tender, amber tint. The traveler lifted a hand, letting the rain collect slowly in their palm. The drops were cool, smooth, unhurried. They rested on the skin for a moment before sliding down between the fingers, a sensation so gentle that it felt almost like a sigh. Somewhere deeper in the district, a soft chime sounded, perhaps a wind bell hanging from a doorway, its delicate voice barely carrying through the rain. The traveler listened. Tap, tap, tap. The rain answered with its own steady lullaby. The sound filled the narrow street, echoing lightly between wooden walls that leaned inward as though listening too. Slowly, the traveler walked again, one step, then another, each movement quiet, matching the rhythm of the rain. Far ahead, a faint glow illuminated the curve of the stone path, the soft promise of another lantern, waiting patiently around the bend. The traveler breathed out a long, soft, even breath and let the evening rain draw them deeper into its calm. Chapter 2: Lantern Light Beneath the Eaves. The traveler rounded the soft curve of the stone path. There, beneath the broad eaves of an old wooden tea house, a lantern glowed gently, its paper surface dampened slightly by the drifting rain. The light inside was warm and pale, a muted amber that shimmered softly each time the wind shifted the rain sideways. The rain did not fall hard here. The eaves caught most of it, letting only thin, delicate strands slip downward like silver threads. They fell slowly, evenly, a curtain of soft rain that swayed gently in the night breeze. The traveler stepped beneath the shelter of the eaves. The rain sounded different here, a touch quieter, a touch softer, as though the wooden overhang filtered the evening's sound into something almost like a whisper. The lantern light trembled faintly, casting warm shapes on the damp stones below, shapes that wavered like reflections on still water. The traveler watched them for a long moment. The shadows moved in slow rhythm, rising and falling, swelling and shrinking, never hurried, never sharp. Just calm motion beneath calm light. Beyond the reach of the eaves, rain continued to fall in thin diagonal lines, catching the lantern's glow for an instant before fading back into the soft gray air. Each drop seemed to fall with intention, not rushing, simply drifting down to meet the stones with a gentle tap. Tap, tap, tap. The sound was steady, soothing, a pattern that loosened the muscles in the traveler's shoulders. Somewhere nearby, another lantern flickered, its glow softened behind a bamboo screen. The bamboo slats filtered the light in a quiet stripes, laying them gently across the ground like the faint traces of a forgotten melody. A light scent drifted from within the tea house. Steamed rice, freshly whisked matcha, a hint of sweet red bean. Warm aromas that blended seamlessly with the rain-soaked air. The traveler closed their eyes for a moment, letting the scent and the soft lantern glow settle inside them. Breathing felt easier here, deeper, slower. The soft sigh of the rain filled the space around them, a gentle rhythm that followed each exhale until breath and sound moved together. When the traveler opened their eyes, a single drop of rain fell from the edge of the eaves, a clear bead descending slowly through the lantern light. It caught the glow just before it reached the ground, shimmering briefly like a tiny star before settling silently onto the stone. The traveler stepped out from beneath the eaves again. Their foot touched the wet stone, and the sound it made was soft, a small, delicate splash that blended effortlessly with the rain. Ahead, the street narrowed slightly, its lanterns lined like quiet guides leading deeper into the stillness of the night. Each glow pulled gently at the traveler's gaze, their warm circles of light stretching softly across the stones. The rain softened. The wind eased. The night grew quieter. The traveler took another step. Then another, led forward by lantern light. By rain. By calm. Chapter 3: The Red Umbrella at the corner of Yasaka Lane. The traveler walked slowly along the narrow stone path as the rain softened into a fine mist. The air felt cooler here, a gentle chill that rose from the rain-darkened stones and drifted upward through the quiet lane. Ahead, where the path curved toward Yasaka Lane, a single shape stood beneath a wooden overhang. A red umbrella. Its surface glowed faintly under the lantern, above it a deep, muted crimson, softened by the touch of falling rain. No figure held it. No footsteps surrounded it. It simply rested there, leaning lightly against the wooden lattice of an old townhouse. The traveler paused. The umbrella seemed almost alive, as though it breathed gently with the rain, its paper surface darkening gradually as droplets accumulated and rolled down its slope in slow, shimmering paths. Each drop moved with unhurried grace. Some gathered at the very tip of the umbrella's bamboo rib, growing heavier, rounder, until they finally let go and fell in a soft, silver arc to the stones below. The sound they made was tiny, barely more than a whispered note. Tap tap. The kind of sound one might hear only when the world is quiet. Inato listened closely. A faint breeze moved through the lane, slipping around corners, sliding over rooftops, carrying with it the delicate scent of wet wood and morning incense from a distant shrine. The red umbrella shifted slightly as the wind brushed past, tilting a single degree just Inato sent a cluster of droplets skimming softly to the ground. The traveler stepped closer. The stones near the umbrella were darker from the constant drip, their surfaces glistening like polished obsidian beneath the lantern's glow. The traveler reached out and touched one fingertip to the wooden handle. It was cool, smooth, lightly damp from the mist. For a moment, the traveler considered picking it up, feeling the weight of it, unfurling it, hearing the gentle rustle of oiled paper in the rain. But something in the stillness asked them not to disturb it. So instead, they lowered their hand and simply stood beside the umbrella, listening. The lane was hushed, filled only with the murmured fall of soft rain and the distant echo of a temple bell fading somewhere deeper in the district. The bell's tone arrived faintly, as though wrapped in layers of mist, low, slow, and immeasurably gentle. It lingered in the traveler's chest long after the sound itself disappeared. The red umbrella leaned quietly against the wall, glowing softly, as though absorbing the lantern light in its paper fibers. A memory without words, a pause without reason. A moment held softly in the quiet heart of a rainy night. The traveler breathed in, then breathed out. Slow, calm. The umbrella watched silently. Then, with a final glance, the traveler stepped away, returning to the gentle pot that curved deeper into Guillaume's quiet rain. Behind them, the red umbrella remained, a small, warm beacon in the drifting mist. Ahead, the street opened toward a wider, quieter district, where more rain waited, soft and steady. Where more lanterns shimmered faintly through the mist. Where the night was still unfolding in slow, peaceful layers. The traveler walked on. Chapter 4: The silent stream behind the Shirakawa tea houses. The traveler continued along the narrowing lane until the soft murmuring of water began to drift through the rain. It was faint at first, a gentle thread of sound woven beneath the patter of falling droplets. But with each step, it grew clearer, calmer, more rhythmic. Soon, the buildings opened slightly, revealing a small walkway behind. A row of old tea houses, their wooden facades darkened beautifully by the night's steady rain. Beyond them, the quiet ribbon of the Shirakawa stream flowed in slow, silken motion. The water was dark, reflecting the lanterns that hung from the teahouse eaves, soft circles of gold rippling gently with every movement of the current. The traveler stood beneath the low overhang of a riverside willow, its long branches swaying slowly in the mild wind. Raindrops clung to the willow leaves, gathering at their tips before letting go in delicate, almost silent falls. Each droplet touched the water with the faintest sound, a tiny, circular ripple that spread outward in widening rings until the river absorbed them completely. The traveler listened. The rain above, the river below, the soft rustle of willow branches, three quiet sounds, layered gently over one another. A harmony made not of notes, but of calm. A soundscape felt more than heard. The tea house along the riverbank were closed for the night. Their sliding doors were shut, their lights dimmed except for one or two gentle lanterns left burning beneath the eaves. These lanterns cast long reflections onto the water, golden lines that stretched and wavered as though breathing softly with the river's flow. Every so often, a breeze would move through the alleyway, and the reflections would tremble, breaking into small fragments of light that shimmered like scattered petals. The traveler watched them for a long, unmeasured moment. No footsteps sounded, no voices called, only the low murmur of water slipping past stones, guided by a current too gentle to disturb the night. The stream's surface was smooth enough to catch the rain like a canvas, each drop creating a brief constellation before dissolving. The traveler crouched near the water's edge, careful not to let their sleeve brush the damp wooden railing. They extended a hand into the cool mist above the river, feeling the faint chill that rose from the current. The air smelled of wet wood, stone washed clean by steady rain, and the faintest trace of early blooming blossoms from a nearby garden. It was a scent as gentle as the night itself. The willow's branches shifted again, brushing the surface of the water with soft, barely audible strokes. Each movement sent a faint shiver through the reflection of the lantern light, transforming the golden glow into slow waves that drifted outward and disappeared. The traveler closed their eyes. Just for a moment. Just long enough to feel the river's rhythm settle into their breath. Slow in, slow out. The water flowed on. The rain fell softly. The lanterns shimmered. And in that quiet rhythm, the traveler felt something within them. Loosen some small tension picked up on the journey, now unwound by water and rain and stillness. When they opened their eyes again, the river looked the same, calm, dark, gentle, but the world felt just a touch lighter. The traveler stood. Ahead, the stone path bent toward a small wooden bridge, waiting quietly in the mist. Its railings glistened with tiny beads of rain. Its planks glowed faintly beneath the distant lanterns. A bridge leading deeper into the calm heart of the rainy night. The traveler began to walk toward it. Chapter 5: The Wooden Bridge of Soft Echoes. The traveler approached the small wooden bridge, its simple arch barely visible through the drifting rain. Mist hung low above the river, gathering in gentle folds that moved slowly along the surface like wandering breath. The bridge waited quietly. No footsteps crossed it. No voices lingered nearby. Only the soft glow from a single lantern at its far end invited the traveler forward. The first step onto the bridge made a faint sound, a soft wooden note, subtle and low, almost lost beneath the drizzle. Yet it echoed, very gently, a small, warm resonance that traveled through the planks, through the railing, through the quiet air. The traveler paused, listening. Rain drifted downward in thin, graceful lines, tapping lightly against the bridge's surface, a delicate pattern of tiny, irregular rhythms. Some drops struck the wooden railing, making a muted pat. Others hit the planks below, creating a softer, rounder sound. Then there were the drops that found the river falling with a more distant tone, a light whisper that blended seamlessly with the steady murmur of flowing water. 3 layers of sound, all soft, all slow, all weaving together into a calm, lulling harmony. The traveler took another step. This time, the wooden echo felt gentler, as though the bridge recognized their presence and softened its voice. The mist thickened slightly, moving across the bridge in slow waves, curling around the traveler's feet like quiet breath from the sleeping river below. Lantern light at the far end shimmered faintly through the mist, a small, steady glow that made the air around it seem warmer. The traveler looked down at the planks beneath them. Beads of rain rested along the wood grain, gathering quietly before sliding in slow, wandering paths toward the edges where they finally fell, joining the river without a sound. A soft breeze passed. Not cold, just cool enough to lift a few strands of mist and send them drifting across the traveler's path. The bridge creaked gently, a faint wooden side hat rose and faded like the exhale of something old and peaceful. The traveler walked on, their steps slow and calm. Each footfall produced the same soft note, low, warm, carried light into the rain. It was a comforting sound, steady and predictable, like the slow beat of a heart beneath layers of blankets. When the traveler reached the center of the bridge, they paused again. Here, the river opened wider, and the reflections of distant lanterns drifted gracefully across. The surface small orbs of gold stretching and swaying with the movement of the water. The traveler leaned slightly over the railing, watching the lantern reflections break and reform with each passing ripple. Rain continued to fall, sending small rings spreading outward, layering themselves over the drifting light. Each ring expanded and faded with unhurried grace, disappearing as gently as it formed. The sound of the river, soft and steady, rose lightly from below the bridge. It was not a loud stream, nor a restless one. It moved slowly, calmly, as though it, too, had settled into the quiet of the night. The traveler breathed in, then out, matching their rhythm to the river's flow. The mist shifted again, and the lantern at the far side glowed a little brighter, its warm circle of light reaching out like an invitation. The traveler began to walk toward it. Each step sounded softer than the last, as though the bridge were absorbing the night's quiet and offering it back in the gentlest way. At the final plank, the traveler stepped off the bridge and onto the stone path again, the soft splash of wet stone welcoming them back to the ground. Behind them, the wooden bridge stood quietly, its echoes fading into the rain. Ahead, the path curved toward a narrow street lined with traditional houses, their windows glowing dimly like lanterns tucked within wooden frames. The traveler walked forward, guided by the soft lights and the restful rain. Chapter 6: The Quiet Alley of Shimmering Rain. The traveler stepped off the wooden bridge and into a narrow alleyway that wound gently between old wooden houses. The walls on either side were close enough that the rain felt quieter here, as though the falling drops were being gathered carefully and softened before they touched the stones. Lantern light from a nearby doorway cast a muted glow along the alley floor, catching the thin lines of rain and making them shimmer like strands of silk. The stones underfoot were uneven in places, their surfaces darkened to a deep, polished gray by the steady drizzle. As the traveler walked, each step created a soft splash, not sharp, not crisp, but a gentle sound like dipping a finger into still water. The alley curved slightly, and the air grew quieter still. Here, the rain was the only voice. It fell in soft, delicate streams from the eaves above, landing in small puddles that had gathered in the dips between stones. The puddles reflected the lantern light in trembling circles, their surfaces rippling gently each time a drop touched them. The traveler paused before one of these puddles. It was shallow, no more than a thin sheet of water resting peacefully along the stone. Yet it held the light as though it were deeper, reflecting the lantern glow in warm, wavering patches. A single raindrop fell, splitting the reflection into tiny fragments that danced outward in widening rings. Another drop fell, then another. Each one sent small ripples moving quietly along the water's surface. A soft, hypnotic rhythm. Slow, gentle, endlessly calming. The traveler continued walking. The alley narrowed further, the wooden walls rising high on both sides, their dark surfaces glistening softly with thin trails of rainwater. The sound here was different, more intimate, more delicate. Rain trickled down the wooden panels in slender streams, creating faint, almost musical lines of sound. A light tapping here, a tiny drip there. The kind of sounds that disappeared as soon as they were heard, leaving only a lingering sense of softness. Above, a bamboo gutter carried water along the edge of a roof, letting it fall in a thin sheet from its far end. The water fell in shimmering strands, catching the lantern glow like a small curtain made of light. The traveler reached out, letting their fingertips brush the cool, falling water. It was barely more than a fine thread, almost weightless, barely there. Yet its touch sent a small wave of quiet calm through the traveler's hand, spreading upward into their arm, their chest, their breath. The traveler exhaled slowly. The alley sighed with the sound of rain, a long, gentle hush that settled easily over the night. At the far end of the narrow passage, a small lantern hung low from a wooden beam, its soft glow barely reaching the stones below. The light flickered faintly, not from wind, but from the rhythm of falling drops touching the paper shade. A calm, slow pulse of warm light. The traveler approached it, their footsteps soft, their breaths easy. The alley expanded slightly, opening into a small space where the rain fell just a little more freely, still gentle, still quiet, but unfiltered. Now, drifting down in a slow, steady veil. The traveler stepped into it, feeling the rain settle on their shoulders, their hair, their hands. Warm lantern glow and cool rain mingled softly on their skin. A balance made for rest. The traveler closed their eyes, letting the rain's quiet touch soak gently into the moment. When they opened them again, the alley extended onward, slightly wider now, lit by more distant lanterns that shimmered through the drifting rain. A deeper quiet waited ahead, and the traveler, guided softly by the sound of rain, walked toward it. Chapter 7 The Garden Hidden Behind the Rain. The alley widened into a small, secluded space where a wooden gate stood slightly ajar. Its surface was darkened by countless evenings of rain, and tonight, Fresh droplets clung to it like tiny beads of glass. The traveler approached the gate. A faint draft passed through the opening, cool, moist, carrying the gentle scent of moss and stone washed clean by the rain. The traveler pushed the gate open just enough to slip inside. The soft creak of the wood was swallowed instantly by the quiet beyond. Inside was a small garden, hidden, protected, wrapped entirely in the hush of rainfall. Stone paths wound slowly through the space, their edges lined with thick cushions of deep green moss, each patch glistening softly as droplets gathered on its surface. The garden's stones varied in size, some were broad and flat, others tall and slender, placed with thoughtful precision to guide the eye and calm the mind. Rain trickled down them, following the natural grooves and worn shapes that age had carved over many seasons. The traveler stepped forward onto the path. The stones here held the rain differently. Some collected small pools, others let water slide in thin, shimmering trails. Each step produced a soft sound, barely audible, a gentle pat, a quiet shift of weight, absorbed immediately by the garden's stillness. To the left, a small basin made from a single stone's at half filled with rainwater. A bamboo pipe hung above it, tilted slightly downward. A single droplet formed at its tip. It swelled slowly, growing heavier, rounder, until gravity pulled it free. The drop fell into the basin below, a tiny sound, clear and delicate. Clink. A sound so small it seemed impossible for it to carry. Yet in this garden, it lingered gently, fading like a whisper drawn into the rain. Another droplet formed, slowly, carefully. Clink. The rhythm was slow enough to match a resting heartbeat. The traveler watched, breath settling naturally into the same pace. Beyond the basin, ferns and low shrubs rustled faintly under the touch of the falling rain. Their leaves shimmered, catching and releasing small beads of water that traced quiet paths downward into the soil and stone. A small maple tree stood at the far edge of the garden. Its delicate leaves, wet and darkened to a deep, calming green, trembled softly each time a raindrop slid from one leaf to another, then fell. Tap. Pause. Tap. Like the soft turning of pages in a book. The traveler approached the maple. Beneath it, the ground was covered in a thick carpet of moss, lush, springy, and deep in color. Rain touched its surface with quiet patience, each droplet sinking slowly into the soft green cushion without a sound. The traveler crouched down, letting their fingers hover just above the moss. A faint warmth rose from the earth beneath, meeting the cool touch of the falling rain. It was a gentle balance. a soft harmony. The traveler stood again, moving deeper into the garden. A small stone lantern rested near the center unlit, yet beautiful in its stillness. Rain flowed down its sides, collecting briefly in the carved grooves before dripping through the hollow space beneath the lantern's top. The droplets fell in slow succession, soft, steady, as though counting time in the language of water. The traveler closed their eyes. The garden breathed. Rain fell. Moss held its quiet. Stones whispered with tiny, near-silent taps as water found its way downward. And all around, a deep, calming stillness settled into the air, a stillness so complete that it felt natural to let thoughts dissolve, to let the mind drift like mist across the quiet space. When the traveler opened their eyes, the garden looked the same, soft, green, peaceful, yet something within them felt slightly lighter, a bit more open, as though the rain had gently washed away the weight of the evening. At the far edge of the garden, another small gate waited, its wooden frame barely visible through the drifting rain. Beyond it, faint light glowed, hinting at another quiet path awaiting the traveler's steps. The traveler took one more breath, slow, easy, letting the garden's calm settle within them. Then, with soft footsteps, they walked toward the gate, the rain guiding them gently into the next quiet moment. Chapter 8: The paper lanterns beneath the drizzling sky. The traveler stepped through the small wooden gate at the far edge of the garden, and the world opened gently into a narrow lane lined with paper lanterns. They hung at regular intervals, each suspended from a slender bamboo pole, their shapes glowing softly behind delicate washi paper. The rain fell lightly now, a fine drizzle that drifted slowly through the warm light like scattered threads of silver. Each lantern held a small, steady flame, not bright, not sharp, but warm and round, as though it breathed quietly within the paper walls. The traveler walked forward. Their footsteps made only the faintest sound in the damp stones, a soft, muted tap that blended seamlessly with the rain. At first, the lanterns seemed identical. Simple, gently glowing. But as the traveler moved deeper into the lane, differences emerged. Some lanterns shelled a slightly warmer hue, like the gold of late afternoon. Others shone with a subtle cream color, like moonlight softened through a shoji screen. Every lantern responded to the rain differently. Drops touched their surfaces with delicate taps, tiny, quick notes that sounded almost like fingertips brushing paper. The sound was subtle, nearly impossible to catch unless one stood very close. The traveler slowed, leaning in just enough to hear the rain's contact with the nearest lantern. Tap, 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 soft, Even gentle Inato lull the mind into stillness. Behind the tapping, the flame inside the lantern flickered very slightly, responding. Not to wind, for the lane was sheltered, but to the natural wavering of its own quiet burn. That flicker cast small waves of shadow in the stone path, ripples of light that stretched and retracted in slow, calming motion. As the traveler continued walking, the lanterns swayed faintly on their bamboo poles. Not enough to disrupt their light, just enough to make the glow seem alive, as though each lantern were breathing softly with the night. In the center of the lane, the traveler paused. A cluster of lanterns shone closer together here, their soft circles of light overlapping gently to create a wider pool of warm illumination. Rain fell through this glow in slow, shimmering lines, catching the warm color and turning it into drifting strands of pale gold. The traveler lifted a hand, letting the glowing rain touch their fingertips. The droplets felt cool but soft, their impact barely noticeable. Yet each one left a tiny shiver of sensation that dissolved quickly into warmth. Nearby, a wooden bench rested beneath an eave, its surface darkened but dry. The traveler sat. The bench accepted their weight with a faint creak, a gentle, old sound that felt nearly comforting. From this place, the lanterns formed a slow-moving constellation, small suns swaying slightly in the gentle drift of drizzle. Their light filled the lane with quiet warmth, blending softly with the sound of rain. The traveler listened. Rain on stone, soft and irregular. Rain on wood, slightly deeper, rounder. Rain on paper, thin, crisp, almost like distant footsteps on a tatami floor. All three sounds layered themselves into a calm pattern, the kind of rhythm that eased the tension from the shoulders, the jaw, the breath. The traveler's eyes grew slightly heavier. The lanterns glowed on, unhurried, holding the warm hues of the lane. Eventually, the traveler rose again, their steps slow, their breath steady. At the far end of the lantern-lined path, a gentle bend awaited, a curve leading toward the edge of Jian where the rain grew softer still. The traveler followed. The lanterns behind faded gradually, their warm halos dimming into mist. The sound of rain remained close, guiding the traveler into the next quiet place. Chapter 9: The Old Tea House with the Sleeping Light. The traveler followed the gentle curve of the lantern path until the lane narrowed, quietly dissolving into a softer stretch of stone that led toward a small, old tea house. The rain had grown lighter, so light that it no longer seemed to fall in lines or drops. Instead, it drifted down like faint threads of mist, barely visible except when it passed through a sliver of warm light. The tea house waited at the very end of the path, its wooden beams slightly slanted from age and weather. A small Norran curtain hung above the doorway, its cloth darkened by countless seasons of rain. The traveler stepped closer. Before entering, they paused beneath the eave, listening. Rain touched the wooden roof with a slow, irregular rhythm almost like the slow heartbeat of the quiet night. But it was softer here than anywhere else, as though the tea house itself absorbed sound the way dry wood absorbs warmth. The traveler slid the door open just enough to step inside. A faint, warm scent rose to greet them, a blend of old tatami, dried tea leaves, and a whisper of cedar. It was a scent without urgency, a scent that invited the lungs to breathe more slowly. The room beyond was dim. At its center rested a single paper lantern, but this one glowed differently from the lanterns outside. Its light was low, as though the flame within were halfway asleep. The lanterns glow did not reach the corners of the room. It did not sharpen shapes or reveal details. Instead, it softened everything, blurring the edges of the table, the woven tatami, the wooden pillars. The traveler stepped forward, feeling the floor's gentle give beneath their feet. They sat before the lantern. The flame inside it moved in slow, languid motions, each tiny flicker stretching out as though drifting on the edge of a dream. The light pulsed in almost imperceptible waves, brightening just slightly, then dimming again, an echo of breath. In the stillness, the traveler noticed a small clay teapot resting beside the lantern. The pot was warm to the touch, its surface smooth and slightly roughened the way hand-formed clay often is. Steam drifted from its spout, not in rising plumes, but in slow, delicate ribbons that curled through the dim air, catching the lantern glow only at their edges. The traveler poured the tea. The sound was gentle, like rain passing through bamboo leaves, a thin, smooth flow that lasted only a moment, yet filled the silence perfectly. The tea's scent was subtle, earthy, calming, with a faint sweetness like rain-soaked grass in early spring. The traveler held the cup in both hands. Warmth spread through their palms, then into their fingertips, moving slowly up the veins of the wrist and into the quiet weight of their arms. Outside, the softest rain continued. But inside the tea house, the sound of it was almost dreamlike, a faint murmur, steady, distant, as though heard through layers of cloth. The traveler sipped the tea. The warmth settled in their chest, then gently dissolved through their body like a slow tide receding. For a moment, the room seemed to breathe with them. The sleeping lantern dimmed slightly, then brightened again, its pace matching the steadiness of the traveler's calming breath. The shadows and the tatami floor shifted softly. Each movement slow inato resembled drifting sand. After finishing the tea, the traveler rested their hands on their lap. Their eyelids grew heavier. The lantern beside them glowed on in its quiet, drowsy rhythm. Nothing moved except the slow flicker of the flame and the faintest curl-off steam from the teapot. The traveler did not fall asleep, not fully. But they drifted into a state just before dreaming, held gently by the warmth and the soft, breathing light. Outside, the rain continued its quiet descent, a whispering curtain around the little tea house. The night waited patiently, calm and unhurried. And the traveler, bathed in the almost sleeping glow of the lantern, remained suspended in perfect stillness. Chapter 10 The Silent Bridge over the Shallow Stream. The traveler stepped out from the teahouse's gentle warmth and back into the soft, misted night of Gion. The rain had grown finer, still so fine that it seemed to float rather than fall, gathering in a pale haze that made every lantern appear to glow through layers of silk. The path sloped gently downward, leading toward a small wooden bridge arched over a shallow stream. The traveler walked slowly, their footsteps muted against the damp stones, each step merging with the surrounding hush and tell. The sound became indistinguishable from the faint breath of the evening rain. As they approached the bridge, the faint murmur of water emerged through the mist, not a flowing sound, not rushing, but something softer, like small beads of water rolling gently along smooth river stones. The traveler PA used before stepping onto the bridge. The wood beneath their feet was darkened with rain, its surface cool and slightly damp. When they shifted their weight, the bridge responded with the faintest creak, a tired, familiar sound that suggested it had weathered many quiet nights like this one. They stepped forward slowly. The stream below moved with barely visible ripples, its surface reflecting the lantern light in long, trembling lines that drifted like threads of gold across the shallow water. A single drop of rain fell from the traveler's sleeve, landing on the surface below with a soft, circular bloom, a ripple so delicate it faded almost as soon as it appeared. The traveler leaned slightly over the railing. The stream carried fallen petals from a late-blooming camellia, deep red shapes floating in slow, unhurried spiral sass. They traced the gentle curves of the current. The petals drifted as though half asleep, barely rotating, barely moving at all, their shadows stretching into long shapes beneath the lantern light. A faint breeze passed. It barely touched the skin, barely stirred the air, yet the sound it made as it brushed the water's surface resembled the soft sigh of someone exhaling in sleep. The traveler remained in the center of the bridge. They closed their eyes for a moment. With their eyes closed, the night deepened, further sounds growing softer, breath growing slower, the faint drizzle blending seamlessly with the murmur of shallow water. The world seemed to sway gently, as though the bridge were cradling the traveler, holding them suspended above the quiet current. When they opened their eyes again, a pale glow traced the outline of the mist rising from the water. It was not lantern light. It was the moon dimmed and blurred by the drifting rain clouds, yet still bright enough to paint the surface of the stream in a soft wash of silver. The traveler watched. The water reflected the moon as a trembling, slightly broken circle, a shape that expanded whenever a raindrop fell, then slowly tightened back into form as the ripples faded. The traveler took a slow breath. The air tasted of clean rain, cool wood, and the faint mineral scent of river stones. A warmth curled gently through their chest, not from heat, but from a kind of deep, settling calm, the kind that comes from standing perfectly still in a place that expects nothing of you. No footsteps approached. No distant voices murmured. The night held only the stream, the drifting petals, and the traveler. The world felt as though it had narrowed into a single moment, a moment long enough to rest within, to breathe into, to float upon like a slow-moving petal. The rain tapered to the faintest drizzle. A single lantern burned on the far side of the bridge, its glow low, its flame steady, as if waiting. The traveler stepped off the bridge and walked toward that soft, patient light. Behind them, the shallow stream continued its gentle murmur, carrying the drifting petals into the deeper folds of the night. Chapter 11: The Stone Garden. Hidden behind the gate, the lantern on the far side of the bridge glowed with a soft amber warmth, not bright enough to illuminate the path fully, but bright enough to guide the traveler toward a narrow wooden gate set into a wall of darkened cedar. The gate was small, just tall enough for a person to pass through with a slight bow of the head. Its wood bore the grain of age, a soft, silvered texture shaped by years of rain and gentle touch. The traveler approached. As they drew nearer, the faint scent of wet cedar grew richer, mixing with the freshness of the lingering drizzle. For a moment, they simply rested their hand against the cool wood of the gate. The surface was smooth in places, rough in others, as though the rain had carved tiny stories into the grain over many quiet seasons. The traveler slid the gate open. It moved without a sound, a quiet, fluid motion that felt almost deliberate, like the gentle opening of a well-used fan. Beyond the gate, the air changed. The world became more still, more hushed. Even the faint drizzle seemed to soften as the traveler stepped inside. A stone garden lay before them, a small, hidden space sheltered from the wind-by bamboo walls and low wooden eaves. The lantern light from outside barely reached this place, leaving much of the garden in a calm, silvery dimness. But it was enough to reveal the quiet beauty of the rain-touched stones. Smooth river stones lined the edges of the garden, their surfaces glistening with a faint sheen of moisture. In the center, raked gravel stretched in gentle curves, sweeping arcs that resembled waves frozen in time. The rain had softened the luminescent places, blurring the crisp edges into gentle shapes as though the garden itself were drifting towards sleep. The traveler stepped inside. Their feet brushed against the wooden walkway that bordered the garden, a soft, muted sound like fabric sliding across a tatami mat. They used before the stone arrangements. A tall stone stood at the garden's center, darkened by the rain, its surface reflecting a faint shimmer of light. Around it, smaller stones rested in a pattern that suggested stillness, patience, and balance. The traveler lowered themselves onto the wooden walkway, letting their hands rest on their knees. A breeze drifted through the garden, a light, barely noticeable breath that stirred only the tips of the bamboo leaves. The sound it made was almost too soft to hear, a delicate rustling, like the faint brushing of silk sleeves. Above, a patch of night sky peeked through the eaves, its clouds thinning just enough to let a dim moon cast a pale glow over the stones. The traveler watched. The moonlight touched the raked gravel, revealing faint patterns where the rain had traced its own shapes, tiny meandering lines, as if water had drawn a soft map through the garden. In the stillness, the traveler's breath grew deeper, slower. The garden seemed to breathe with them, its shapes steady, its silence profound. They closed their eyes for a moment. The air around them held a quiet coolness, not cold, but gentle, the kind of cool that invites the body to settle more deeply into rest. Somewhere in the distance, a single drop of water fell from the eaves onto a flat stone, creating a soft, rounded sound, a tone more felt than heard. Another drop followed, and another. Each one was spaced just far enough apart to form a rhythm that slowed the heartbeat and eased the shoulders. When the traveler opened their eyes again, a faint mist coated the stones, a soft veil that gave the garden a dreamlike quiet. The world felt slightly blurred, as though seen through half-closed eyes. The traveler listened. No footsteps. No distant voices. No movement beyond the soft drift of rain-cooled air. Only the occasional sound of water touching stone, and the gentle hush of bamboo leaves moving in sleep. The traveler felt their breath settle even more deeply. Their shoulders relaxed. Their hands loosened. Their minds softened into a slow, quiet openness. The stone garden, hidden behind the gate, held them in a silence that asked for nothing, a silence that felt like the quiet space between dreams. After a time, they rose slowly. The garden seemed to bow with them its stillness, a gentle farewell. They slid the gate closed with the same softness as before, a motion so quiet that it barely disturbed the hush of the night. Outside, the lantern's glow waited patiently, casting a warm, steady circle on the damp path. The traveler stepped forward, leaving the hidden garden behind but carrying with them its deep, quiet calm. Chapter 12. Lanterns fading toward midnight. The path beyond the gate seemed quieter than before, as though the stone garden's silence had followed the traveler out into the night. The lantern that had guided them glowed softly on the damp stones, its light trembling each time a breeze passed through the thinning drizzle. Midnight was approaching, not with any haste, not with sharpness or clarity, but with the slow, inevitable gentleness of a curtain drifting closed. The traveler walked. Their footsteps echoed faintly, then softened, then disappeared, entirely absorbed by the wet ground and the deepening stillness. Along the narrow lane, lanterns hung from eaves and doorways, some bright, some dim, some swaying subtly as though drifting in the rhythm of sleep. One lantern, hanging from the corner of a tea house, flickered softly, not from wind, but from its flame growing tired. Its paper surface glowed with a fading warmth, like a bedside lamp in a room where someone has long since closed their eyes. The traveler paused beside it. The lantern's painted character shod softened in the damp night air, their lines blurring gently like ink touched by rain. Its flame curled inward, then outward, shiveried in a slow, dreamlike motion. The traveler watched as the lantern dimmed just slightly, not enough to vanish, but enough to look as though it were exhaling. Beyond it, another lantern hung beneath a willow tree. This one glowed with a paler, more delicate light, the flame so small it seemed to float within its paper walls without weight. Raindrops clung to the willow leaves above, and now and then, one would fall onto the lantern's top, sending a tiny vibration through the paper that caused the light within to shimmer. The traveler moved closer. The lantern's glow painted the underside of the willow leaves with a soft, yellow haze, tiny half-moons of light touching each trembling edge. A breath of wind passed through the branches. The leaves stirred. Raindrops shifted, and the lantern responded with a faint, barely noticeable sway, a movement so slow and gentle that it felt like breathing. The traveler continued onward. The drizzle faded into a thin mist, and the mist into a fine, evenly settled stillness. The night deepened. Shops had long closed. Tea houses had lowered their curtains. The last distant footsteps had faded completely. Only the lanterns remained awake or half awake, their dimming glow guiding the traveler along the quiet lanes. At the end of one path, a cluster of lanterns shone together beneath a long wooden awning. They glowed like a constellation, each one steady but slowly softening, their light blending into a gentle amber blur as the mist thickened around them. The traveler stepped beneath the awning. Here, the sound of rain was different. It fell in the slow, measured tones of droplets hitting wood, a low, hollow tapping that repeated with no urgency, no rhythm, just the lazy calm of a night settling fully into its quietest hours. One lantern flickered. Its flame stretched upward for a moment, then sank low again as if drifting into its own dreams. The traveler paused. They stood among the lanterns, breathing in the deep warmth of their fading light. The air smelled of old wood, warm paper, and the faint sweetness of tea that had been poured hours earlier. The lanterns illuminated the traveler's hands, casting soft, trembling shadows across their palms. The traveler closed their eyes. In the darkness behind their eyelids, the light did not disappear. It softened, blurred, floated gently. Their breath slowed. Outside the awning, the drizzle weakened until it became nothing more than a thin whisper in the edge of hearing. One by one, the lanterns dimmed, not extinguished, not gone, but lowered as though someone were turning down the brightness of the world to coax it into sleep. The traveler opened their eyes. The lanterns glowed faintly, like warm embers in a hearth that had burned quietly for many hours. Midnight approached with soft steps. The traveler stepped back onto the path. The lanterns did not brighten or fade faster, but seemed to watch with a gentle, understanding, a silent farewell before drifting deeper into their nighttime slumber. The traveler continued forward, their surroundings growing dimmer, the mist thicker, the air quieter. And somewhere ahead, beyond the lanterns, beyond the stillness, another part of Jian waited in the dark, ready to reveal itself only as slowly as a dream forms. Chapter 13: The Narrow Alley of Quiet Footsteps. The lanterns behind the travelers softened into a distant glow, their warmth fading into the light mist that hovered gently over the old stone paths. Ahead, A narrow alley stretched forward so slender that the walls on either side seemed almost close enough to rest a shoulder against. The alley was darker than the lanes before it. The lanterns here hung lower, glowed dimmer, their paper shades dampened by the lingering mist. The travelers stepped inside. Their footsteps made only the faintest sound, a soft, cushioned hush-like cloth brushing against cloth. Each step seemed quieter than the last. The rain had nearly ceased, yet a thin veil of moisture clung to everything: the stones, the wooden walls, the old bamboo gutters that traced the edges of the roofs. Somewhere above, a single droplet fell from the tip of a wooden EAVEAND, landed on the ground with a gentle, rounded tap. The alley swallowed the sound almost instantly. It was that quiet. The traveler paused. A faint scent rose from the damp stones, a clean, earthy aroma that felt cool on the inhale, warm on the exhale. The air here seemed heavier, calmer, as though it had not been disturbed for many hours. The traveler moved forward. The alley bent slightly to the left, its curves soft and unhurried, guiding the traveler deeper into its shadowed stillness. The wooden walls on either side showed the marks of age, weathery degrain, soft cracks, darkened knots that held stories only the rain remembered. Now and then, the faintest breeze drifted through the alley, barely strong enough to stir a loose thread in the traveler's sleeve, yet carrying with it a coolness that refreshed the skin. Above, the sky narrowed into a thin ribbon between the roofs, a dark strip through which soft, pale moonlight filtered down in fragments. The traveler glanced upward. The moon appeared only as a faint blur, its glow softened by the fine mist still floating in the air. For a moment, the traveler walked with their gaze lifted, watching the pale light shift as they moved beneath it. Then a subtle sound touched their ear. Not footsteps, not wind, not rain. A soft rustle, the quiet shiver of something moving gently over stone. The traveler looked down. A thin stream of water trickled along the edge of the alley, rainwater gathering from the roofs above, flowing in a narrow ribbon that glowed faintly under the moon's dim light. The water moved with a slow, contented ease, carrying with it tiny flecks of light, reflections of lanterns far behind the traveler. The gentle flow created a sound barely louder than breath, a delicate, constant whisper that filled the alley with a soothing steadiness. The travelers slowed their steps. Each movement felt as though it echoed through the alley's narrow space, not loudly, but intimately, as though the walls themselves were listening. A slight chill touched the traveler's shoulders, but it was a peaceful chill, the kind that wrapped softly around the body and encouraged deeper breaths. As they continued, the walls gradually shifted from wood to stone. The texture changed, the air cooled, and the faint moonlight glistened in the damp stone surface, creating tiny points of reflection that shimmered like faint, sleepy stars just above the ground. The traveler ran a hand lightly along the wall. The stone felt cool, smooth in places, rough in others, each Venice carved gently by time and weather. Another droplet fell from above. It struck the traveler's sleeve with a nearly silent tap. The traveler paused again. The alley felt deeper now, quieter, almost weightless. The kind of quiet that invites the mind to drift, that makes thoughts soften and footsteps slow without effort. A faint lantern glow appeared ahead, a soft, barely there warmth waiting at the alley's end. It shimmered in the mist like a light seen through dreams, its edges blurred, its color muted to a gentle amber. The traveler walked toward it, their steps slow, steady, quiet. Each step carried them closer, not just to the lantern, but to a deeper stillness, a stillness that seemed to hum softly beneath the very air. The alley widened, breathing out gently, and the traveler reached the faint circle of lantern light. Behind them, the narrow alley rested in the silence they had passed through, a long, quiet exhale left behind in their wake. Chapter 14: The wooden stairway leading up the hill. The alley ended at the base of a gentle hill, where a narrow wooden stairway began its slow ascent. The steps were worn smooth, darkened by rain, slightly slick beneath the traveler's feet. Each tread carried the soft scent of wet cedar and earth, mixed with the lingering faint aroma of distant lanterns. The traveler placed a hand lightly on the damp railing. It was cool, its surface uneven with age, but steady, a guide through the misty night. The rain had almost ceased, falling now in a whisper, a thread of moisture tracing the curve of the hillside and collecting in thin streams along the edges of the steps. Each step up made only the softest sound, a muted tap, absorbed immediately by the soaked wood and earth. The hill rose slowly. The traveler's eyes followed the slopes. The stairway stretched upward, each step blending into the next, a quiet, hypnotic rhythm of movement and pause. Above, mist hung thick in the air, partly hiding the faint lanterns strung along the path. They glowed like distant stars, warm pinpoints in the cool gray night. The traveler inhaled slowly, drawing in the mist-scented air. It was fresh, softly damp, like the calm that comes before the deepest part of sleep. The wooden railing felt steady beneath their fingers, guiding their steps without need for thought. Each hand movement, each step, was deliberate yet effortless, as though the hill itself welcomed slow passage. Somewhere above, a lone bamboo grove swayed in the faint night breeze. Its leaves made a soft, dry rustle, barely audible, like the turning of a page in a very large, quiet book. The traveler's breath began to match the rhythm of their steps. Inhale, step, exhale, step. The cadence was gentle, steady, and it drew the mind inward, toward calm. A single raindrop fell from a leaf above, landing on the wooden railing with a soft, round tap. The sound lingered just long enough to join the quiet chorus of mist and stone and wood. The traveler paused midway, leaning lightly on the railing. Looking upward, the lanterns continued their slow glow, their shapes blurred by mist, their light warm and unhurried. The hill seemed endless, yet not tiring. Every step upward felt like a slow exhale, each small motion erasing tension from the body, from the mind. Above them, the final stretch of the stairway rose gradually toward a small temple gate. Its dark wood gleamed softly from the lingering drizzle, its form almost melting into the night mist. The traveler resumed walking. Each step was softer than the last. The wood beneath felt familiar, welcoming. The air cooled further, yet comforted the traveler with its stillness. As they reached the top, the lanterns along the path flickered faintly, tiny, sleepy pulses like eyes closing slowly. The traveler stepped off the final tread onto the stone platform of the hilltop. The railing ended. The hill below was swallowed by mist. The path behind them was a fading memory of steps, sound, and soft rain. They breathed slowly, deeply, feeling the quiet night settle around them. Everything was calm: the hill, the mist, the temple gate, and the traveler. Here, at the top, with the wooden stairway behind, the night felt infinite, patient, ready to cradle the traveler as their thoughts slowed and sleep's embrace drew near. Chapter 15: The Small Temple at the Hilltop. The traveler stepped onto the stone platform at the hilltop. Before them stood a small temple, its dark wooden beams gleaming softly from the lingering drizzle. The roof was gently curved, edges outlined by thin rivulets of water, each droplet reflecting the pale glow of a single lantern. The air was still, perfumed faintly with damp wood, moss, and the faint incense lingering from earlier offerings. The night wrapped itself around the temple like a thick, soft blanket. The traveler approached the steps leading up to the small veranda. Each stone was cool, slightly slick, yet firm underfoot. The faintest sound echoed a soft, hollow tap that dissipated into the quiet. At the top, the traveler paused. The temple doors were closed. Behind the thin wooden lattice, soft light glowed, dim and steady, a gentle pulse in the heart of the night. From within, a faint sound reached them, the bell. Not the full, resonant sound of the day, but a soft, solitary note like a whisper sliding across the temple floor. It rang slowly, long enough to fade into the mist, then returned after a measured pause. The traveler closed their eyes. The sound of the bell tied together the night, the hill, the mist, the distant lanterns, the quiet of Guion far below. A light drizzle continued, falling in soft threads from the temple roof, landing on the stone platform with tiny rounded taps. The traveler inhaled. The air was cool and still, yet alive. With tiny movements, water sliding off eaves, leaves trembling faintly, the bells echo threading through the empty spaces. They stepped forward onto the veranda, leaning lightly on the railing. The platform was wet, the wood giving softly under touch. The traveler gazed over the misty hillside, seeing only blurred shapes of trees, glowing lanterns far below, and the slow drift of clouds across the night sky. The bell sounded again, a single note. It lingered longer this time, then vanished entirely into the deep calm of the hilltop. The traveler settled onto the wooden steps, feet resting lightly on the stone below. They closed their eyes fully. The night, the mist, the faint bell, and the soft, lingering scent of incense and rain formed a cocoon around them. Breath slowed. Thoughts dissolved. The rhythm of the rain, the faint echo of the bell, the warm glow of lantern lightened the distance, all wove together into a seamless quiet. Here, at the small temple's summit, sleep approached softly, not abruptly, not with urgency, but like the gentle folding of a long, weary day into the warm, infinite night. The traveler let their head tilt slightly, their body supported by the veranda. The sound of the bell returned once more, slow, tender, fading, and the traveler's eyes heading to the edge of dreams. The hilltop, the temple, the lanterns below, the mist, and the rain all waited. Quietly, watching over the traveler as the night carried them gently towards sleep. Chapter 16, Dreaming Among Lanterns. The traveler rested on the temple veranda, eyes half closed, breath quiet and steady. The world around them softened as though the night itself had exhaled a long, gentle sigh. Below the hilltop, lanterns scattered through the old streets glimmered faintly, their warm lights blurred by the drifting mist. Seen from above, they resembled small, floating orbs, tiny guardian shivering in the quiet air. The traveler watched them as one might watch falling snowflakes, each light moving almost imperceptibly in the shifting night. Sometimes they flickered, sometimes they shone steadily. Sometimes they seemed to drift closer, as if called upward by the hill's soft breath. A breeze passed gently over the temple roof. It carried a faint scent of wet stone, warm tatami from distant inns, and the lingering sweetness of incense burned earlier in the evening. The breeze stroked the traveler's hair. Soft inato blur the line between waking and drifting. Somewhere below, a single lantern swayed, its motion slow and rhythmic. The light within it glowed as though breathing, brightening on the inhale, softening on the exhale. The traveler's own breath fell naturally into sync. Inhale, the lantern brightened. Exhale, the lantern dimmed. The soundscape of Jian was nearly silent. Only the whisper of water sliding down rooftops, and the far-off murmur of late-night footsteps in empty streets could be heard. The night felt endless, wide, patient. As the traveler's eyelids grew heavier, the lanterns below began to blur further, their warm shapes stretching softly, as though melting into the mist. Some rose slightly, like fireflies. Some faded, like distant memories of summer. Others seemed to draw shapes in the air, gentle arcs and waves, tracing patterns that lulled the traveler deeper. The faint bell from the temple rung once again. But this time, it felt different, not a call, but an echo from within the traveler's dreams. A soft vibration that rippled gently through their resting body. The glow of the lanterns mixed with the soft ringing, creating a haze of warmth that wrapped around the traveler like a quiet, weightless blanket. Their breath slowed further, becoming barely noticeable, as if the night itself breathed for them. The lanterns floated closer, then farther, then closer once more. Each motion is as slow as drifting clouds. Each glows with a warm hand guiding the traveler into deeper stillness. The mist thickened slightly, turning the night into something soft inato rest upon. The traveler felt their body grow pleasantly heavy, their thoughts dissolving into small fragments of light flickers, shimmers, glimmers of half-formed dreams that rose and fell like lanterns at a festival. A gentle drizzle began again, barely more than a whisper, soft taps on temple wood, quiet kisses on stone. Each drop was a tiny note, and together they played a rhythm meant only for sleep. The traveler's head tilted slowly to one side. Their eyes closed fully. The lanterns below became warm memories, gentle shapes behind the eyelids, floating and glowing in the soft darkness. The bell sounded once more, a single, fading tone. And the traveler, wrapped in lantern-light dreams, sank into the deepest quiet, held tenderly be. The hilltop temple, the drifting mist, and the patient, watchful night. Chapter 17 The Night That Watches Over All. The traveler drifted, neither fully awake nor fully asleep. Their breath rose and fell in a rhythm so soft it seemed to blend with the mist itself. The night around the hilltop had grown impossibly still. No rustle of leaves, no footsteps from distant alleys, not even the faint shuffle of rain. Only a vast, serene quiet, a silence so gentle that it felt alive, like a presence watching over the traveler. The temple stood nearby, its wood dark and sleek from hours of soft rain. Lantern light flickered faintly through the lattice panels. Warm Minato paint the veranda with a dim amber glow. The traveler rested in that glow, their body following the slow, natural curve of the wooden step. Their hands were relaxed, their shoulders unwound, their breath effortless, a slow tide washing in and out. Above the traveler, the clouds shifted silently. Not a wind, not a breeze, only a gentle rearranging of the night sky, as though the heavens themselves were settling in, making room for sleep to deepen. Far below, the lanterns in Gion had dimmed. Street after street seemed to exhale one last time before drifting into perfect rest. Their glow remained, not bright, but present, silent companions the traveler's dreams. The night seemed to lean closer. Not heavy, not dark, but comforting, a soft presence brushing the traveler's cheeks like the gentlest hand. If night had a voice, it would have spoken then, a whisper, a murmur, a lullaby woven from the threads of quiet rain and distant bells and lantern light. But the night needed no words. Its silence was enough. The traveler let their thoughts drift like petals on a slow-moving stream. Each thought floated quietly, spinning once, twice, then dissolving completely. Nothing clung, nothing lingered, everything was soft, everything was gentle, even the faint echo of the temple bell which had guided them up the wooden stairs, through the mist, into the lantern-lit dreams was now a memory wrapped in velvet. It resonated only as a distant warmth within the traveler's chest. The night deepened further. Somewhere above the clouds, the moon must have been shining, but its light reached the earth only as a soft, pearly gray, diffused through layers of mist until it felt more like a feeling than a sight. The traveler inhaled slowly, then exhaled even slower. The air around them grew warmer, as if the night was tucking them in. The boundary between body and air began to blur. The traveler felt weightless, like a piece of cloud, like mist, like lantern smoke rising into the sky. The temple, the hill, the lanterns, The streets below all seemed to drift outward, becoming distant, soft, suspended. At last, the travelers surrendered fully to the night. Their breath became steady. Their mind grew quiet. And the night, ever watchful, ever gentle, held them in a silence that asked for nothing, expected nothing, and gave everything. A silence that watched over all. Final chapter before the first light of dawn. The travelers slept. The hilltop temple, the mist-filled night, the lantern-lit streets far below all rested with them, wrapped in the same deep, unbroken stillness. Time loosened its hold. Minutes, hours, perhaps longer, none of it mattered. The night lay thick and gentle, as if stretching itself endlessly so the traveler could remain in this quiet, weightless place. Above the traveler, the clouds drifted slowly, as though careful not to disturb the sleep beneath them. The world had folded into a perfect hush. Only one sound remained the softest, barely their murmur of water dripping from the temple's eaves. Each drop fell with unhurried grace, pausing at the edge before letting go, falling through the lantern-tinted darkness to vanish among the stones. The traveler's breath matched that gentle rhythm. Inhale, a slow swell. Exhale, a soft release. Everything moved together: the breath, the mist, the distant clouds. Deep within their dreams, the traveler floated through corridors of faint, light shimmering echoes of lanterns, reflections on wet stone, glimmers of golden warmth trailing through the darkness like fireflies. They drifted between them, unafraid, unburdened. The lights moved slowly, patiently, guiding the traveler deeper without urgency, like companions walking quietly along a midnight path. Somewhere in the distance, toward the far edge of the dream, the temple bell chimed once. A single, weightless note. So soft it was barely sound, more like a warm ripple passing through the air. Its resonance spread gently, rolling across the hillside, through the traveler's resting body, and into the stillness of morning that waited just beyond the horizon. But dawn did not come. Not yet. The world remained suspended in that fragile moment before first light, a moment that belonged to neither night nor day, where nothing was expected, nothing rushed forward, and everything simply existed. The traveler lay motionless, held in that peaceful cradle. Sleep had taken them completely, not the fleeting kind, but the deep, quiet sleep that reaches the very center of the heart. The mist began to thin ever so slightly, yet the world still glowed softly, as though lit from within by the remnants of dream-born lanterns. The hill below was silent. The streets of Jian rested under the final veil of night. Even the rain had stopped its gentle tapping, leaving behind a hushed world bathed in the sheen of night's last breaths. High above, on the temple's wooden veranda, the traveler slept on. And the night, faithful to its last moment, watched over them tenderly, cradling every breath, softening every thought, easing every last trace of waking life. Only when the sky began its faint, almost imperceptible shift toward dawn, a pale whisper of color behind the mountains, did the night slowly begin to withdraw. Not abruptly, not entirely, but with the gentlest grace, like a hand releasing another but still lingering for a heartbeat. The traveler did not stir. They remained wrapped in the lingering warmth of the dreaming lanterns, resting deeply as the world moved softly toward morning. And so, in the quiet just before sunrise, with the night's protection still resting upon their sleeping form, the story ended. Not with awakening, but with peace. A deep, steady, enduring peace that would carry them gently into the light.